Hey there, Derek here from Pacific Coast Auto in Japan, and we're looking at a 2006 Suzuki Swift Sport. This one here, a 1.6 liter twin cam, 125 horsepower version of the Swift. Obviously has a 5-speed manual transmission, has suspension, wheels, air intake, and exhaust from HKS. It's a cool little package. We'll take a look at the car compared to the auction inspection sheet, and then we'll be shipping this one over to Canada. Okay, for the beginning, I'm just going to switch the engine off. I will say that there's no trouble at all with the engine, and have a nice listen to the exhaust. That HKS exhaust makes it sound very cool. Now, a lot of people don't realize, but the Swift Sport is kind of the go-to race car for people who want to start racing here in Japan, but don't have a ton of cash. These are fantastic. They handle good. They're generally pretty powerful on racetracks that are fairly tight, like the ones we have here in Japan. Parts are available. Cars are really cheap. And lots of 5-speed manuals to go around. Unfortunately, with most cars, they're dropping manuals like crazy, and it is so fun to drive what I would consider like a low-power front-wheel drive 5-speed manual car. In fact, this Swift is very similar to our Lupo GTI. 125 horsepower. Can't see it. 125 horsepower. 950 kilograms. 1,060 kilograms. So about 110 kilograms more for this one. We actually maybe 126 horsepower, because look at that. I'm joking. But if you take a look at the intake manifold, this is very long. It curls all the way under to make it as long of an intake runner as possible, which is going to give you a little bit more top-end power, which is good on a racetrack. I haven't had a chance to drive these, but I do see them quite frequently, and they are pretty awesome. I've always really liked the boxy tall boy styling on them, and I kind of wish that they did sell them in North America, but the Suzuki Swift kind of ended prematurely when everyone laughed at this small little car. And they're only laughing because they didn't take it onto a racetrack to beat Camaros with it, which may be a little bit of a stretch depending on the racetrack. But yeah, good cars. Highly recommend them. Pretty cheap. Okay, I'm going to close the hood here. It is a steel hood on this. You don't get the luxuries of the Miata or the Supra or the Skyline or the Impreza with the aluminum hood, the GTO. I'm trying to drop that GTO into every conversation I have. The last video I did as well. Okay, quick look at the car with the black hood. Okay, and a read over of the auction inspection sheet. So this is the information given to us from the auction on the car, and I will read it to you, or translate it from Japanese into English. 2006 1600cc Swift Sports. Okay, auction grade 4, interior C, power steering, power windows, and airbag, 137 and 136 kilometers. Purchase from user is the only sales point. They didn't mention any of the aftermarket parts, and so really nice little win on that. The auction reporter, so this one here is for the seller. This section here is for the seller to write. So if there's any sales points, you want to write those in there. They didn't take advantage. And I think most people who buy one of these is going to like those things, the exhaust, suspension, and air intake. I think that's all the aftermarket. The seats inside, I'll come back to the interior in a second, but I got to show early in the video when more people are watching. These are optional extra seats you could pay to get put in there, and they are Recaros. And they look brilliant with the black and red two-tone, matching the door cards. Not cool enough for me to sell my Lupo GTI, but you could buy 3 of these for the same cost as the Lupo GTI. Okay, so seat wear and ripped and saggy. I'll show you that when we get to the interior. Steering wheel wear, it's barely worn. Lowered suspension with a question mark. It is lowered. It's kind of a knockoff brand, so I don't know how good it'll be, but lowered suspension gives you a firmer ride, makes things feel better, even if it's a low quality one. Aftermarket wheels are scraped. They're Buddy Club P1, and all 4 of them have little nicks in them that have been touched up with a touch-up paint. But I do like these P1s, and I think that they suit the car very nice. They're a very common wheel for like autocross style racing here. Okay, aftermarket exhaust with question mark, aftermarket air filter. Now these were all written by the inspector, not the seller. Underside 1 part surface, rust and painted, various scratches and dents and repairs. Hood is a different color, W3 on it for a pour respray. It's actually pretty bad. It shouldn't be all cloudy like that. And then I think that they repainted it because it was starting to rust where it had rock chips. But instead of fixing the rock chips, they just let it rust more. So you have little spots, plenty of them, where it started to rust and the rust has started to spread. So now you got to sand this down and then repaint it. But at least you're not ruining anybody's art. The repaint was done with spray paint. So you could wrap it, you could repaint it, you can keep it black, or you can go back to white. I think the black looks good. I don't have anything wrong with that. Kind of makes it look a little bit more sporty. Okay, and then U2 on the back bumper here and an AU1 here. Okay, so that's a medium dent and a small dent here. And really that is all the damage. Exterior, I think I would call this something like an 8 out of 10. Interior is probably about an 8 out of 10 too. But yeah, generally a good buy on this. I like it. So let's go around so you can see it from all the different angles. You can see there is nothing being hidden on this car because we're going to show you all the angles, except for the underside. I got pictures of those. The rear spoiler on there is quite nice. And oh yes, this exhaust, the stock exhaust is a dual exhaust and it looks very cool with that diffuser-like black section, but the HKS fills out those holes a little bit better. And yeah, do like the sound of it. This car is going to be very cool to have in Canada. Fuel efficient. Oh, and the reason why people do cheap cars for race cars is gasoline is expensive, brake pads are expensive, tires are expensive, and all of those things are way less expensive on a lightweight, low-power car. And you still get a lot of fun driving something like this, especially if you're just starting out driving and you want to learn how to drive before you get into something more powerful. Something like this can teach you from the beginning how to be a good driver before you start setting yourself up for failures that are more painful when you're going a lot faster. The weight balance in a car like this is going to be a lot easier to control than on something that is lower, wider, and lower center of gravity. Okay, so headlights are faded. The fog lights look to be okay, and I quite like how they decided to paint this gray. That's a factory thing. It's not like the aftermarket painted hood. Okay, we have a little bit of fade on here, only on this side it seems, there and here. The small dent is right here. Okay, tires are the same size, front and rear, 195/50 R16, and they are DOT compliant and from 2018 with about 80% of their life left on them. There's a little chip in the paint right here. Do like that spoiler. I kind of wish it was a little bit bigger, but I have a soft spot for stupid wings. I want a huge wing on everything that I own, so something like WRC style would be cool to me. Okay, the tail lights look nice and clear, despite the front ones being faded. Let's look at the exhaust again, because that makes me happy. Yeah. I'll get back into the trunk in a sec. Here's your U2 on the back. Obviously not so bad. So between this and the other dent and the paint fade in the hood, that's all the damage there is. Everything's looking good all the way along here. And again, they painted this in the gray color, gives it a trimmer body look. It is a big boy, this thing. Probably a few centimeters taller than our Lupo. Okay, do we have rolled fenders? We do. Okay. And rolled in the back as well. Let's get into the trunk. And we have the stock air filter box in the trunk here, which shows you that you can carry an air filter box in the trunk if you want. I wonder that air intake and the exhaust. I wonder on a car like this, how much power do you actually get? 5 or 6 horsepower? So maybe you're at like 130, 132. The sound really makes driving more enjoyable though, so even if it's just a little bit of extra power, having an aftermarket exhaust is something that I want on most of my cars. Okay, getting into the rear, you don't have a huge space to get in because it is a very small car. But I do like this fake brushed aluminum. I think that looks great on an otherwise fairly cheap door. It brings all of your attention to the red and the silver here. And when I opened the doors, I went, this is nice, instead of, look at those cheap materials. You still get the two-tone color in the back. I don't know if all the Swift Sports came with these cool two-tone seats in Recaro. Grant said he thought that they were a dealer option, or you can choose to spec it out like this. I think I would spec it out like this. Okay, I think it's a 4-airbag car, both driver and passenger, as well as A-pillar airbags. I don't think there are any in the seat, but let's just have a quick look. Oh, you also get B-pillar, so 6 airbags. Here's a look at those seats again. And yes, the driver's side one has little tears in it. I'll show you. And it sits up fairly tall, so it doesn't feel that sporty when you're sitting in it. Okay. So this part here is worn down so you can see the color a little bit. There's a threadbare area there, and the foam is eaten away a bit right there. Pretty common on Recaro seats. I think Recaro's been making seats for long enough for them to not fall into the trap of having weak side bolsters, but when people get in, they get out by squishing this down, and unfortunately it damages them over time. So if you do have any seats made by Recaro, or any seats in general, try to do the get in like this, so that this part here doesn't get sat on, and then in. Get out in the same way. Try not to sit on that bolster. Steering wheel, it said there was wear on the auction sheet, but that's looking pretty good to me. I think it's a short shift kit. It feels quite short for a throw. And then it says SS shifter right here. So Suzuki Sport shifter. It's a 5-speed manual. Would be cool if Suzuki put a 6-speed in here, but they got to make money, and they don't sell a ton of cars that aren't K cars. And so they got to make their money where they can. That's a small company. The biggest K car maker, but I think one of the smallest regular car or subcompact makers. Oh, look, robot face. Eyes, nose, and mouth. A mark here. It kind of looks like that's where the airbag comes out of. I don't know. I don't have so much experience with this car. I think it's only like our 4th one that we've bought. Okay, nice and clean inside. I'll show you the throw of this. Okay, cup holders up here. AC works nice and well. Mechanically, everything works well. And I think these might be an optional brake pedal kit, because they look maybe a little bit different from what I would expect a regular pedal to look like. Okay, fog light switch here. Everything's pretty simple. They put the tachometer in the wrong spot though. Tachometer always has to be the most prominent one. Who cares what speed that you're going? It's the speed of the engine you need to care about. It looks like it revs to 6,800. Okay, tons of room for the big guys in here. You get like this much headroom. And then the seat's not even in full back position. Now it is. And those pedals are now too far away from me. Okay, and I like how the steering wheel, although it's not telescopic, it is fairly close to you, which is good, because for sporty driving, you're going to want that closer to you. Aftermarket CD player here has auxiliary in, and I think maybe Bluetooth. It looks modern enough to have Bluetooth. And a toll collection box over there. Okay, I think I'm going to carefully get out of the car without sagging your seat down. I think we are done here. Suzuki Swift Sport. Cool car. Grant almost bought one. This was his 2nd place. So, yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with this car. That's what I told him. You want to get the Fit or the Swift? My vote goes for Fit, but if you get this, you can be happy with that. Oh, I thought I was going to get run over by a car, but it was just that Alfred's AC coming on. All right, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and have a nice day.